Welcome to the Experience Strategy Podcast, where we talk to customers and experts about how to create products and services that feel like time well spent. And now, here are your hosts, experienced strategists, Dave Norton and Aranza Savas.
Welcome to the Experience Strategy Podcast. I'm Aranza Savas.
And I'm Dave Norton.
And today we are joined by our longtime friend and collaborator, Justin Jackson. He is the SVP of Product Management and Head of Enterprise Payments at Fiserv. I'll let Justin tell you a little about Fiserv. Those who are in the know that Fiserv is deeply embedded into all of our lives, but they can be a background player in many instances. So you may not see exactly where you are interacting with them. Justin's been at Fiserv since 2002. He's had lots of different roles, from consumer payments capabilities, working in products, all the way to this current role as the head of enterprise payments. Justin's in a new role right now and leading a new, diverse, and hybrid workforce in a tumultuous is probably the right word time in our society, and where we're seeing so many shifts in terms of the employee experience. And so Justin is an experienced strategist who has done incredible work for customers throughout his career. But today he comes to us as an employee experience strategist and as a leader. And we are going to look at how we lead teams successfully through these challenging seems like too vague a word for where we are, but these times where, frankly, we have challenges that we've never known before, and where we are navigating more complexity and more disruption than we historically have had to in many ways as leaders. So really, really grateful to you, Justin, for bringing your time, your experience into this room in a conversation that I hope will help leaders of all sizes of organizations and all types of organizations feel more confident, more capable, and more successful, and at least a sense of understanding as they lead their teams through these times. Justin, thanks for being here. Absolutely. All right. So tell the folks at home a little bit about what Fiserv does.
All right. So Fiserv, the easiest way to think of us, we're the biggest fintech on the planet. We really make money move. We build banking technology. We build technology for billers and merchants and processors. And we effectively enable any sort of payment or banking transaction that you might need to make on a daily basis. If you're withdrawing money from an ATM, or you're transferring money between two different bank accounts, or you're swiping a card and buying something at a merchant, there's a very, very good chance that some piece of, if not that entire transaction, is flowing across Fiserv infrastructure. A lot of people haven't heard of us. As you said, Aranza, we do sit kind of in the background in a lot of these transactions, but we work with 100 of the top 100 financial institutions across the US. We serve the biggest merchants that you do business with every day. We help the biggest billers that provide services to you as a consumer. So you're working with us. You might just not know it yet.
And I imagine it takes a pretty massive and sophisticated team to do that.
Yeah, it does. So, 40,000-ish employees, very, very large presence, employees in all 50 US states and most of the territories, offices across the globe, very, very large operation. But we also, focus very deeply on supporting our partners in a very one-to-one kind of relationship-driven organization. We're very focused on our customers, on our clients, our partners. And that's where I spend a lot of my time. Today's conversation focused on employees. They're, a different kind of partner within our organization operation. But try to stay very, very focused on those relationships as being the backbone of what we do and how we deliver and really provide value to everyone that's a stakeholder in our operation.
I love that. And I love that you are taking the same skills and frameworks that you used to succeed in customer experience and now translating those to the employee experience. What do you believe are some of the biggest challenges that you and other leaders face right now as people leaders?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when I look at the world today, when I look outside, the world today is very, very different from where it was 5 years ago. I think back to, when I first started attending the various, different industry groups that we've had around experience design and participating in the collaborative that I was part of with Stone Mantle early on. I look back on those days and I think about what the world was then. We were traveling frequently. We were always face to face. We were in our offices. We were in our partners' offices. We had this very connected physical presence with one another. And I fast forward now to 2023, things have changed dramatically. That idea of face-to-face often doesn't come through quite as directly as it used to. Look at this conversation today, right? We're in different facilities. It looks like you and Dave are in two different offices. I'm in a third office. We're spread across the globe and having this conversation over technology, whereas I think if you went back 5 years, we would have probably had this conversation in a studio somewhere or, around a table. That has been a major factor in changing how we work as teams and how we lead our teams, what we expect out of our employees and our associates, and then how we deliver to our clients and to our partners. I think that change is probably one of the biggest challenges we face as leaders, because it's really taken a lot of conventional wisdom and causes us to question how do we operate, how do we deliver. It's thrown into question some of the kind of standard conclusions that we've made in the past, and then it's actually reinforced some of them as well. It's taken some things that we question. Is it really necessary to have a whole team physically present together? Do they do better? And I would say, well, yeah. The last couple of years have given me a lot of evidence to say absolutely, and they should probably be together as much as they can. We do better together. But going back to your question, I think that's one of the biggest challenges, right? That just dramatic change in our expectation of physical togetherness as teams and as clients in today's environment.
Yeah, I think of it as virtual used to be the exception, and now hybrid is the rule.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Yep.
And it's funny that you bring up this question of how that affects us as teams, because as we were getting signed on, Dave and I were chatting about the fact that he is sitting in a space not far away, half a nation away, where yes, there are maybe some national influences that we are both experiencing today at the same time and in the same way. On the other hand, people where he is are worrying about the roofs collapsing from historic levels of snow. Meanwhile, I'm here in New York City in 66-degree weather, perfect clear blue skies. We are having a very different experience of this day. And the weather, the weather isn't everything, obviously, but it is a factor that is playing into our energy and our focus and how we are spending our time. And so you think about how much more difference we are all experiencing now in these largely remote and absolutely hybrid workplace environments.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah, I think that has a pretty profound effect on people and how we work together. I was on a meeting a couple of days ago where it was virtual. We were spread out. There were, 4 or 5 Fiserv attendees and a couple of attendees from one of our partners. It was interesting to see that of the attendees that were dialed into this virtual meeting, there were, varying degrees of connectedness, if you will, in the sense that there were some attendees that their audio video was perfect. You could hear everything they said. There was no choppiness. There was no latency. The video feed, it felt like they were just right across the room. But there was one individual in particular that didn't have that connectivity, and it was jarring. right? The fact that they were pixelated and their audio was cutting in and out, and you know, every now and then the video would freeze up. We've all seen this and experienced it. But it creates kind of a hurdle in how you work together when those little blips introduce themselves into the equation. It's almost like, think about suspension of disbelief when you're watching a movie, right? It's easy to be together when everything is functioning and working well. It's easy to feel like you're still operating physically present with one another. But then as soon as there's a blip, as soon as that snowstorm takes out, you know, power for someone and they immediately drop off of your meeting, it creates this very jarring sensation and really jeopardizes, I think, the progress you can make as a team and how well you're working together. It can throw a pretty big monkey wrench into things, in my opinion.
Yeah, and how much you trust your teammates, right? And the credibility, because we do have biases, and whether they are conscious or unconscious, we interpret those as having meaning, those blips. And it's technology. It's not a person's intellect, but if you can't understand that person, if you're struggling to interpret what they're saying because of technology, it will influence how you perceive them.
So I have to interject here for a second, because Stone Mantle, I started it in 2005. It has always been a virtual company, always been a virtual team. And back in the day, that was considered to be a negative. But one of the things that we learned fairly early on was the power of two. And what I mean by that is, when you're working with remote situations, the more people that are in on the meeting, the more likely there is to be some kind of a struggle that happens, or challenges, or people kind of don't take accountability. But if you have smaller meetings with two people that know that they're helping each other along, you can accomplish quite a bit. Now, I don't know that works for a 40,000 employee company the way it works for a small boutique consultancy firm, but that's been one of the ways in which we've been able to maintain accountability, focus, get the work done the way that you need to get the work done, is really focusing on very small teams working together. So
I will say, it's really interesting to hear you say Stone Mantle's always been a virtual organization. Because when I take a step back and I think about it objectively, of course, you don't have a Stone Mantle headquarters. You don't have the Stone Mantle tower that I can go to, right? You don't have the big Stone Mantle office. But I've never thought of Stone Mantle as a virtual organization, because the experience that we have is one of presence. Right? When we would have our collaborative meetings, they were face to face. We were sitting around a table having a conversation. When we ran focus groups, I still remember flying out to Phoenix and sitting with the team and observing the focus groups that were happening over a span of multiple days, and we were all present. Yeah, there might not be a physical office location that's, you know, got a big Stone Mantle sign outside, but I've never thought of the company or the organization as one that's virtual. And I think that hinges on the fact that the experience you're delivering is one of that, you know, togetherness.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you're absolutely right. Part of the reason we were able to get away with being a virtual team is because we were constantly traveling. We were constantly traveling. We were constantly somewhere at some location working with some group. And now that has changed dramatically. And it has changed my lifestyle quite a bit, to be completely honest. So,
well, and there's a sense of intimacy, right, that comes from spending time together. So Justin and I actually met when we were both participants in the collaborative, he with Fiserv and I with Weight Watchers, and we forged friendships and partnerships through that work together, through traveling together, through solving problems together. Now you're leading a team where I suspect many of your team members have never met one another. And I think there is a big part of what works, especially in big organizations, is a sense of accountability. And behavioral science and psychology have both shown that people are more motivated by impact on others than on themselves. Even though we are motivated by understanding what the benefits are for us, we're more motivated to take action and do the work oftentimes because we feel a sense of accountability to someone else, that external driver of accountability. And I've wondered how that plays out in big organizations where these people no longer have this view of one another and the impact of, if I don't do my work today, it's not going to go well for Justin over there. And he might be upset with me, right? That sense of sort of mutual emotional response and reactivity as a result of not playing full out or being fully engaged. So I'm curious how you manage that, or if that's something that indeed you're seeing in the organization.
Yeah. So first of all, let me say, I think you're right. I think the direct impact that you can see on someone else is a huge motivator, right?
Big factor. Mm-hmm.
I would rather tell the story in a positive way, but let's tell it in a negative way because that's the story that popped to top of mind. If you make a mistake and you're in the office and you mess up and you're walking out at the end of the day, it's 5:30, it's 6 o'clock, and your coworker is still sitting there and is going to work until 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock at night cleaning up the mistake you made. I hope most people probably feel a sense of guilt, right? A sense of, I didn't stay here with them and help them fix this. What did I do that caused this? How can I help them wrap this up so that they can get out of here and get to their family too? And if this is how we're working, I don't see that. I don't see that you're still online. And
I can ignore your little Slack icon that shows.
It's very easy to see that. So, I think you're absolutely right. That's a powerful motivator. Does it retain its power in larger organizations? I think it absolutely does. But I think it depends on how you foster that team culture. One of the things that I've done with my team that we've spoken about in the past is really thought about how do we define goals, right? Everybody in corporate America goes through this exercise of goal setting every year and defining what are my goals for the year that I'm going to be evaluated on at the end of the year. And I've really taken an approach within my team and then within our broader organization, this is kind of caught on, of we don't have role-based goals. So I have developers and I have QA people and I have marketing people and I have sales people. And yeah, we have a sales quota and we have a marketing lead gen goal and we have a defect rate that QA often drives and we have features that the developers have to build. But those goals are not tied to those individual roles. Everybody on the team has a full set of goals and it gets kind of unwieldy to manage, right? Because you might have 30, 40, 50 goals that are across the team, but every single person on the team shares all of those because they all have the ability to affect them. Sales can affect development's ability to deliver on their feature goals based on what they're committing to in contracts. Marketing can affect sales' ability to meet quota based on how they're helping with those leads and how they're qualifying those leads and the work that they're doing around those pieces. All of my team members are accountable to all of those goals. And we either win or lose together based on those goals. It creates that sense of accountability of, I might not be a developer or I might not be in marketing, but what I'm doing day to day has the ability to affect their ability to be successful in their job. I've driven that within the team for a long time. And it's initially there's some resistance, right? People are saying, I'm not in sales. I'm not in front of that customer. I don't have an ability to affect whether we win or lose. And every single person on the team absolutely does, whether it's through the quality of service delivery, or it's the breadth of the feature set, or it's the timeliness of our releases. We all have the ability to affect that. I think that what I've seen is really the kind of the foundational element to creating that sense of accountability to your teammates, that we're all here arm in arm. We all have an outcome we're looking to deliver for our business. How can we do that effectively? Not how can I be successful at the one task that I have on my plate, but how can that task fit in to the overall objective of the team and enable my teammates to also be successful? That's ultimately what I want to drive. And it's what I see really coming through in what you just described, which is that sense of accountability to everybody around you.
And that makes a lot of sense.
I have to ask a question. Did you have goals before 2020?
Yeah,
as a team.
we did.
And you had goals during COVID.
Yes.
How has goal setting changed now that you're kind of in the world that you're now? Do you depend on them even more to bring that team together? Is that what you're saying? Or are there different types of goals that you're asking them to set? Or is there a different level of accountability?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how that works.
It's a good question. So no, they're not different types of goals. There's not a different level of accountability. I'm a little biased toward this model because I've been using this model for, 6, 7 years as far as goal setting goes. What I've seen in the time of COVID and post-COVID is the importance of that kind of team-based approach has become even more pronounced, right? Because you do have that risk. You have team members that have never met one another. You have team members that are spread all across the country, all across the globe. Now, at Fiserv, we are over time pursuing how do we co-locate more of our teams. So, if somebody resigns in a particular area and they're not with the rest of their team, when we bring in a backfill position for that person, we're probably going to do that at one of our core offices, as opposed to hire someone else who's remote and elsewhere, so that they're with their team. They're going to onboard more quickly. They're going to be more engaged. They're less likely to leave in the first 12 months. We've got empirical data behind all of this that shows, look, if we're together physically, we will do better on any number of different metrics. What I have seen is that since the time of COVID, Dave, this goal setting methodology has become more important to fostering that team environment. It's not different. It hasn't changed. It's just got more of a role in driving success within the team.
What I like about it is having sat around resourcing tables that felt like Game of Thrones, where we were all fighting for prioritization and engineering resources, and everyone was in the position to make the case that their project was the one that deserved engineers and PMs and financial support. It felt like we were all constantly pulling in different directions. Right. And the organization itself became internally competitive, which leads to a misalignment of teams and a lack of true engagement and support of the projects that do get prioritization, because people feel like they're losing, right? There are winners and losers in that setup. And that is a recipe for engagement disaster. Okay. And so what I get excited about here is this idea that from the top, we have to have strong, capable, well-informed leadership who are able to say, look, this is what really matters to us as an organization. This is what we're going to invest in. And we're all responsible for its success collectively. And that means we're not going to do everything or be everything, but rather that we're going to go all in on the things that we have agreed we are going all in on. And to me, everything that we've been talking about here, we hear so much. What is it? Bare minimum Monday and quiet quitting and all of these different ways that we have come to shorthand disengagement, right? To make a meme out of what is effectively disengaged, uninspired employees. It is a way of reminding ourselves that if that's what's happening, we all have responsibility for re-engaging our employees. We all have responsibility for creating an inspiring and meaningfully motivating environment. And that's really freaking tough to do at a time when there is so much uncertainty.
That's right. Yeah. You're spot on.
How, Justin, has uncertainty impacted the way that you have to lead your teams? I mean, there's crazy stuff going on in banking right now.
Really?
Of course, seems to be like a cycle to crazy stuff happening in banking, and we're clearly at one of those junctures. It's a really tough time. Many of your customers are small and mid-size banks and so forth. So there's a lot of concern and stress with your customers. How's that affecting your organization and your strategy for helping your employees?
Yeah, it's a good question. So if we go back to one of the opening comments that I made about Fiserv and kind of how we lead the business, we focus on those relationships that we have with the various financial institutions with which we do business. Our institutions that we do business with feel the same uncertainty, right? They see what's happening in the market. They want to know what we're doing to help them and protect them. And ultimately, that comes back to the relationship that we fostered, that we're a partner to those organizations. We've looked at, how do we help them be ready for whatever happens out in the marketplace, which is, really the role that we need to play. We need to support them as businesses, understand what it is they want to achieve, what are their goals, how are they trying to get there, and then how can we fit in and help them with that. So that's kind of the outward-facing view. Inwardly, to our teams, I think it goes back to how we talk about goals and objectives. There's uncertainty out there, but we know what the outcomes are that we want to deliver, right? We want to deliver a high-quality service. We want to do so in a way that we can be proud of, that our clients are happy to be buying. We want to enable them to be successful in their business. We want them to talk about the fact that we're helping them be successful in our business. And I think we see a lot of really good progress on all of those fronts. But regardless of what's happening out in the marketplace, those objectives don't really change. Now, exactly how do we make our partners successful might change when you start talking about an environment where banks are failing as opposed to an environment where banks are not. But at the end of the day, it's still, our key objective is still, how do we partner with them as a client of Fiserv? And how do we enable them to be successful on their business objectives? If we stay focused on that ball, I don't see a big problem. I don't see the uncertainty making a major issue. And I think that's reflected a lot within our teams, that they continue to be very engaged and very successful.
I think there's a really big lesson in that. So this is a place where two of our 2023, 2024, can't believe I'm saying those words, collaborative tracks are going to intersect. So we have one on employee experience and really creating a meaningful and engaging employee experience. And we have another one this year on how to survive and succeed through being a more agile and nimble company in a time where the only certainty is uncertainty. And I think what you are saying strikes right home on this, which is understand the why. And so it's not about necessarily we're going to delight our customers by delivering X dollars, but why do they care about this KPI? Well, it's because they want customer confidence and loyalty. And if we stay focused on that, on the why, and we can continue to deliver on the why, despite the fact that who anticipated these bank failures? Not me. Some people may have, but I did not. This is the first time I've ever Googled, I'm a TD Bank customer. And I was like, are Canadian banks subject to this? Right? Like I'm learning about this as I go, like so many customers. Right. And ultimately, though, if we get to that why place, despite the big surprises, we can still be successful.
Yeah.
I think we like Fiserv have been through a lot of ups and downs. We're a much smaller organization again, but oftentimes it's during these times of uncertainty and challenges within an industry that some really important things happen and certain innovations that have been on the back burner move to the foreground. And I wouldn't be surprised to see some companies do very, very well in this new world that we're moving into. For all intents and purposes, is going to be with us for some time to come. I'm not completely convinced that inflation is going away right away, or that the Fed wants to go back to a place where they were, 5 years ago. So banks are going to have to adapt, and that means that Fiserv is going to have to adapt, and maybe some of the projects that employees were working on before that may have not been quite as important become even more important. Any thoughts on that, Justin?
So I'm gonna nitpick and take one word out of what you said before I agree with you. So I'm gonna ditch the word project, and then I'm gonna say I think you're 100% right. We this year at Fiserv, we've kind of dubbed it the year of operational excellence, right? And the idea behind that is, when we deliver a service, whether it's a technology service or it's part of how we manage the relationship, or it's something, physical hardware that we're delivering, when we deliver that service to our clients, it needs to be absolutely rock solid 100% of the time. And so a lot of our teams are ramping up the amount of diligence they put into things like defect resolution and how responsive we are to inquiries that our clients make or cases that they might open with us. It's not that we didn't care about these things in the past. It's just that we're doubling down on how much energy we put in to those aspects of the business. The thinking being, it's really, really important to do the things that we do for our partners really, really well. We want to deliver an experience that they can be 100% confident in, so that when banks merge, or when they make an acquisition, or when they have a new digital bank they're standing up, that there's no question that they'll be partnering with us to do those things.
Sure.
We already have deep relationships with these institutions. This year of operational excellence is about making sure that the service that we're delivering to them is something that is just far and away the best that they see in the market. So I think you're right. It's not necessarily a deprioritization of some projects and prioritizing other projects. It's more about, how do we look at those things and determine what's most important to our partners, and then spend as much of our energy as possible on those particular aspects of the business.
Yeah,
I love
that. It's strategic.
Try to be.
Right.
What do you know? So as we start to wind down here, what is the biggest thing you've learned this year as a new leader of a largely cross-functional, dispersed team?
Yeah, good question. So I've had those dispersed teams for quite a while, right? That's not something new to me. What's new to me is, in this particular role, the focus area. I've historically been very focused on consumer payments. So I've been working on products where you or I or Dave might use them through our own smartphone in a mobile banking app, or we might use them through online banking on a laptop. This new role is one that's much more focused on kind of the payments infrastructure of the banking industry and enabling capabilities that other people use to build. To a certain extent, it's almost like building blocks, right? Someone else is going to take my stuff and turn it into a product that someone might use. What's the biggest learning or lesson that I've got as I come into this role? It's really the idea of kind of end-to-end ownership and accountability, and how important that is to foster within a team, right? The idea that I had a conversation earlier today, and we talked about a particular issue that had occurred with one of our products. Having all of the stakeholders at the table, having the incident manager that got the phone call when the system went down, having the relationship manager who's talking to the financial institution, the developer who wrote the code, the professional services team that installed it and put it into place, rallying everyone around one table and talking through what happened, why did it happen, and how do we make sure it never happens again? Pulling them into that conversation and then fostering that sense of, guys, we're a team. This isn't about accusing anyone. This isn't about finding who messed up that led to this problem. It's about making sure that our partner never ever has to call us about this issue again, and making sure that we learn from it, right? That's really what you can take away from these types of events is how do you get better? But you can only do that if you have that sense of being a team and collectively being accountable to some objective or some kind of higher order good that you're delivering on as a team. So I think my biggest learning or lesson coming out of past roles and coming into this role is that you cannot overstate the importance of fostering that idea that you are a team. And if you can do that, then you ultimately drive engagement, you drive quality, you drive success. You see all of that grow out of the fact that you have one team all rallied around one goal.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like the difference there is that instead of this being about I win, you lose, or you lose, I win. I think I just said it the same way both times in reverse. It's about we learn.
Yeah. I do like that you said it the same way both times, because both times you won in your statement.
Exactly.
but I do agree with you that that's the takeaway, right? We're always learning, we're always getting better. And that's really how to be successful, in my opinion, is just be constantly improving and learning from everything around you.
Mm-hmm. Everything and everyone. Yes. Here's to making more mistakes and learning from them. I have a feeling we'll get lots of chances to practice that. Thank you so much for being with us today, Justin. Thank you for being such an amazing partner, and we hope to see you in the collaborative next year.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
To all of you listening, you can find out more about Fiserv online or about Justin on LinkedIn. And we want to hear more about what you want to hear more about. So please reach out to us on LinkedIn. You can find us, Dave Norton, Aranza Savas. Reach out. Let us know what you'd like to hear next on the Experience Strategy Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Experience Strategy Podcast. If you're having fun nerding out with us, please follow and share wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Find more episodes and continue the conversation with us at experiencestrategypodcast.com.